piggyback on what we were talking about earlier, as far as like where our clients have to travel, how far they have to go to get access to abortion care, reproductive health care that they need. Gorilla Girls have a piece that's right here around the corner. Texas or bust, or abortions are bust, I should say, that provide a visual of how far people do have to travel to access care. So, of course, supporting your local abortion fund is incredibly important. We have a fellow organization called Fund Texas Choice. That's their whole focus. Yes, shout out to Fund Texas Choice. Their entire mission is to ensure that folks in Texas who need access to out-of-state abortion care can pay for the travel to get that care that they need. I also wanted to highlight a couple of other focuses. We do so much as an organization. We have just within this last year have really grown the Infant Care Resource Drive, which is an aspect of our My Choice Out of Crisis campaign. But we also have a program that anybody in the U.S. can participate if you have had an abortion. It's called Post-Abortion Truth and Healing. It's our emotional support group. These folks meet virtually, they meet in person ever so often here in our area of service. But annually they also participate in a retreat where they get to come together and work through trauma, learn how to connect with one another, and find community with other folks who've experienced abortions as well. So that's another way that you can interact with the services that we provide. As far as giving back, getting involved, what can you do from that way? Of course, money is always great. We certainly love that. Sharing our materials is really important as well. We're making conscious efforts to feature more information on our social media channels that really highlights the products and the services and the care that you can receive through interacting with T-Fund. So making sure that content is getting shared. So even if you're just putting it in your stories, that's incredibly helpful. We are all, as artists who work in these kinds of spaces, are surely very familiar with the algorithm, right? And how the algorithm does not work for us and the kind of work that we share. While we do experience very often that we're able to get, right? Like I know that all of us in here probably, no matter what we kind of the work that we do, it gets suppressed in some capacity because it exists outside of the status quo, right? Everything that we're doing here is outside of the status quo. The algorithm doesn't like that, so the content gets suppressed. So every time you share those materials and make sure that other folks in your community know that we exist and that those materials exist, that helps other folks get access to the care that we need, or that they need. I will say just this week, our programs team let us know that somebody found our Repro Care kits on TikTok, and that's how they were able to access the care that they need. Right, yeah, so the power of the hashtag, the power of just engaging with something, your likes, your story reshares, all of those are very integral to making sure that people are getting the word out. So that is what I would have to say from my perspective.
Thinking about how this work is outside of what's supported by the algorithms, outside of the mainstream, the status quo, and that's why it's so vital. What kind of representations around abortion do you think are urgent right now? Certainly the idea that abortion is normal, it's part of pregnancy care, it's part of health care, but are there ways that artists can support insofar as we create messages, right, that are often outside of the normal, that can support kind of changing that narrative about what abortion is, who it's for, and why it's so important, or directions that you see that might be, exciting to support the work you're doing?
Absolutely. So right off the bat, I would say that just saying the word abortion is so important. It's a thing that I literally learned when I was going through the application process to get this job. They were like, will you just say it? It's like, oh yeah. And I had not even thought about that in itself is like an empowerment tool. So now I'm saying it all the time. I'm screaming in the grocery store, letting people know. We're doing it where we can, right? And I think that, the work that we do and whatnot is very stigmatized, right? And so part of that effort is normalizing and destigmatizing the work that we're doing, talking about reproductive health care from all aspects of it, and not being afraid to say the word abortion. It feels very scary, and that's because we've been socialized to be afraid of the topic. And so just making it normal parts of I went to the doctor, my child receives health care, I received abortion care, like, it's not a big deal. Those are just one of the things. So I think really trying to incorporate that into conversations, into the work that you're featuring, as best you can, is a really great first step. I think also highlighting the fact that reproductive health care is intersectional in the communities that deserve access to it. Of course, we all deserve access to reproductive health care, but I think also speaking on it from a position of like, one thing that we encounter a lot in communications is what we call the woman of it all, where it's like women's health care and women's rights and women having children. It's like, we're talking about pregnant people or people who have the ability and capacity to become pregnant. And so we try to remove the gender aspect from conversations when we're talking about reproductive health care. And then the last thing I'll say before I turn it over to Denise is expanding the conversation around reproductive health care and access to everyone. So we're talking about everybody in the family, because no matter what you're thinking about or talking about in the like grand scope of things, reproductive care and reproductive access impacts everyone. So making sure